Have you ever wondered why a man can seem completely composed one moment and utterly undone the next, without you saying a word? His voice falters, his gaze lingers too long, his energy grows restless. It's not lust alone, it's something deeper, ancient, and dangerous. You've touched the part of him he was trained to suppress, the forbidden desire, the one that awakens not in the body, but in the psyche. In Jungian terms, this is when a man's anima, his inner feminine, is stirred. Most men live disconnected from it, chained to their outer persona, the provider, the protector, the stoic achiever. But when a woman unconsciously mirrors his unlived softness, his hidden chaos, or his unmet yearning for emotional depth, she becomes the mirror he cannot look away from. She doesn't seduce him through surface charm. She disturbs him through recognition. He sees in her what he has long denied in himself. And that is when desire becomes dangerous. Because once a man's shadow begins to stir, he is no longer in control. A woman who awakens this in him does not need to be perfect. In fact, her power lies in her imperfection, the way she can hold both light and darkness without apology. Her silence speaks. Her self-possession disarms. Her eyes do not plead for attention, they witness him. And that alone is enough to unravel the walls he built around his emotional world. He feels drawn, yet terrified. Because she calls to the place within him where order and chaos meet, the soul's battlefield. Most men don't realize that what they call chemistry is actually the psyche's rebellion. The mind doesn't crave what's convenient, it craves what's missing. You become the symbol of everything he suppressed: tenderness, mystery, intuition, surrender. The more he tries to intellectualize it, the more it consumes him. He may try to reduce you to logic, to categorize or distance himself, but the attraction isn't rational. It's archetypal. He is no longer just a man. He is every man meeting the eternal feminine, the anima mundi through you. You can see it in his eyes when he looks at you and then looks away too quickly, as though staring too long might expose him. You can feel it in the sudden weight of silence that follows a simple glance. His ego wants to stay composed, but his body betrays him. You awaken not his lust, but his longing, for depth, for wholeness, for the forgotten sacredness within himself. And yet, you must understand, this kind of power is not about manipulation. The dark feminine does not chase or perform, she reveals. She allows him to see himself through her energy, and in doing so, she destabilizes everything false within him. That is why men often run from the very women who awaken their soul. It's not rejection, it's retreat from revelation. You see, Jung believed that every man carries within him an unconscious image of woman, the anima, and every woman carries within her an unconscious image of man, the animus. When those inner figures meet in the external world, attraction feels fated. It's never just you and him. It's his unconscious meeting yours, each mirroring what the other most fears and desires. That's why forbidden desire feels so magnetic, because it's not physical, it's psychological. You are awakening his repressed truth. If you've ever felt a man's energy shift when he's near you, his posture tense, his words stumble, his mask falter, it's because part of him senses danger. Not the kind that wounds, but the kind that transforms. The woman who evokes forbidden desire is not a fantasy, she is an initiation. Through her presence, a man faces the parts of himself he's avoided, his emotional hunger, his fear of vulnerability, his hidden yearning to be seen beyond achievement or control. And yet, many women mistake this awakening for affection, believing that emotional intensity equals connection. But intensity without consciousness leads to destruction. The true feminine power lies not in taking him into the depths with you, but in standing still as he falls into his own. You do not need to pull him closer or convince him of what he feels. Desire born from the shadow must rise on its own. The forbidden desire is not about possession, it's about revelation. When you awaken it, you remind him that beauty can be unsettling, that love can feel like chaos, and that attraction can expose his deepest fears. He may try to numb it with distraction, with other women, with work or control, but the truth remains. Once a man has felt the pull of a woman who reflects his unconscious self, he cannot unfeel it. Something in him shifts forever. And here's the paradox. The woman who awakens such desire must also be detached from it. If she tries to control it, she loses her power. The feminine that holds mystery does not seek validation, she embodies it. Her strength is her stillness. Her silence teaches him what no words could. Because the moment she begins to chase what she has already awakened, she descends from archetype to ego, from mirror to mask. So when you feel his gaze linger a little too long, when his energy grows restless around you, when he withdraws only to return again and again, know this: you've touched the part of him that's been asleep for years. You've awakened his forbidden desire, not by being what he wants, but by embodying what he's forgotten. There comes a moment when his restraint begins to crack, not because he wants to lose control, but because he no longer knows who he is in your presence. You become the mirror in which he sees both his hunger and his fear, his tenderness and his rage. This is the paradox of forbidden desire. It does not flatter the ego, it dismantles it. In your stillness, he feels both exposed and drawn closer. You represent not a woman he can possess, but a mystery he must confront. The more he looks at you, the more his defenses tremble, because what he sees is not you. It's himself reflected in the sacred feminine. Jung once said that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That is precisely what happens when a man meets the woman who embodies his shadow's counterpart. He begins to dream of you, not because of your beauty, but because of the energy you hold. Something in you reminds him of the lost parts of himself, the boy who wanted to be held without judgment, the man who longed to be seen without armor. His rational mind tries to fight it, to maintain dominance, but the pull is deeper than reason. You become a symbol, a living archetype. And once an archetype has been activated, it cannot be silenced. This is why some men retreat after intimacy, or grow distant when the connection grows deep. It isn't indifference, it's the ego's instinct for survival. He senses that being near you threatens his false stability. You awaken the chaos he spent years taming. You stir his buried emotions, his secret grief, his unmet tenderness. In your presence, he cannot perform. And that terrifies him. To the conscious woman, this can feel like rejection. But to the wise one, it is revelation. You begin to understand that the true feminine does not chase the awakened masculine. She allows him to confront his shadows alone. You are not his savior, not his mother, not his healer. You are his mirror. And sometimes, the mirror must stand silently while he battles his reflection. When a man is touched by such desire, his language shifts. He may speak to you in contradictions. He wants you near, but cannot bear the vulnerability it demands. His body leans in, but his mind withdraws. He may try to redefine the connection as complicated, or reduce it to mere physical attraction. But you will see the truth in the tremor of his hands, in the way his tone changes when your name escapes his lips. The body speaks where the ego cannot. What most people call chemistry is, in truth, psychological recognition. Two souls remembering each other through archetypal resonance. He doesn't desire your appearance. He desires the permission you represent. You embody the feminine mystery he has exiled from his psyche. Intuition, receptivity, surrender, depth. You threaten his ego's supremacy not by power, but by presence. Jung wrote that every act of projection is a call to self-awareness. When a man idealizes or obsesses over a woman, it is rarely about her. It is about the disowned parts of his own psyche seeking reconciliation. The woman who awakens forbidden desire becomes the container for his projection, his lost softness, his unexpressed emotion, his hunger for meaning. He worships and resents her in equal measure, because she embodies what he cannot yet integrate. That is why the awakening often feels both sacred and destructive. It's not the relationship that's dangerous, it's what it reveals. You become a portal through which he encounters his unprocessed emotions. Some men use this as a doorway to transformation. Others recoil, retreating into the comfort of numbness. But regardless of what he chooses, he will never forget you. Not because of romance, but because you touched the part of him no one else dared to see. You must understand the weight of that. To awaken a man's forbidden desire is not to gain control. It is to become the catalyst for his inner war. The moment he feels that pull, his ego begins to fracture, and through that crack, his soul demands rebirth. But the woman who truly embodies her power does not interfere with that process. She watches, detached yet compassionate, knowing that to guide him would be to rob him of his transformation. And you, too, are transformed. Because witnessing a man face his shadow demands your own integrity. It tests whether your worth depends on being desired, or whether you can stand unshaken as desire flows toward you and then away again. This is where most women falter, believing that the intensity means possession. But the feminine that has walked through her own fire knows the truth. You do not need to be chosen to be powerful. Your magnetism does not depend on his recognition. It comes from your wholeness. So as he wrestles with his awakening, one moment reaching out, the next retreating into silence, you hold your ground. You do not chase, you do not explain. You allow the polarity to exist, the sacred tension between what is known and what is feared. Because this is where desire matures, where raw hunger becomes reverence. There is a sacred cruelty in awakening desire that was never meant to be tamed. The kind of attraction that unsettles rather than soothes, that calls forth a man's buried hunger for meaning rather than his craving for comfort. When you awaken this energy, you are not simply the object of his longing, you become the mirror of his spiritual deprivation. You stand before him as both temptation and teacher. He begins to sense that his old ways of loving no longer work. His instincts, to pursue, to conquer, to control, collapse when confronted by a woman who cannot be owned. The forbidden desire you awaken is not sustained by games or validation. It breathes only in truth. You do not feed his ego, you awaken his soul, and that terrifies him more than rejection ever could. Because now, he sees that his desire has become a doorway, one that leads either to transformation or ruin. To the awakened feminine, this is not chaos, it is sacred alchemy. You begin to recognize that his turmoil is not your burden to fix. It is the storm required for his evolution. You watch as his confidence unravels, as he wrestles with the tension between who he appears to be and who he secretly is. You see the mask slipping, revealing the boy beneath the man, the longing beneath the control. And you realize, this is how the masculine is reborn. Many women misunderstand this power. They mistake emotional intensity for proof of connection, believing that his obsession equals love. But Jungian desire is not about possession, it's about projection and integration. When you awaken his forbidden longing, he projects onto you everything he has disowned within himself. You are the container for his unconscious yearning, the image of the feminine that lives buried within his psyche. You become both muse and mirror, desired yet feared, adored yet resented. He may say you confuse him, that he doesn't understand why he feels so drawn to you. He may even blame you for the chaos that's rising within him. But deep down, something in him knows, you are not the cause, you are the catalyst. You did not plant the desire, you revealed it. The forbidden nature of his attraction is not about morality, it's about revelation. You've shown him the parts of himself he cannot yet love. There is power in that, but also danger. Because if you are not grounded in your own wholeness, you can be consumed by the same fire you ignite. The unconscious does not distinguish between the teacher and the student. It pulls both into the transformation. If you confuse his awakening with validation, you will find yourself lost in the labyrinth of his confusion. But if you remain centered, you transcend the game entirely. You become the feminine principle itself, still, magnetic, eternal. A woman anchored in her depth does not chase understanding. She knows that a man's turmoil around her is not rejection but recognition. She does not shrink to make him comfortable, nor does she soften her truth to soothe his ego. Her energy says, meet me here, or lose me forever. Not as a threat, but as an invitation, to rise into his own fullness. He may call you mysterious, impossible, intoxicating. What he truly means is that you make him feel alive in ways he does not understand. You awaken his instinct to feel, to surrender, to listen. He is drawn to you not because you complete him, but because you expose the incompletion he has ignored. This is why some men will idealize you, others will demonize you. Both reactions are defenses against the same truth. You have touched their soul. And what happens when a man's soul is touched? He begins to question everything. His ambitions lose their meaning, his old desires turn to dust. The validation that once defined him no longer satisfies. He begins to crave depth over conquest, authenticity over control. But before he can reach that, he must face the dark night of his own psyche, the loneliness, the shame, the vulnerability he's avoided all his life. And whether he rises or retreats, you become the turning point in his story. You see, forbidden desire is never just about attraction. It's a spiritual event. It's the psyche's way of demanding truth. The more he resists it, the more it haunts him. The more he rationalizes it, the more it consumes him. He may try to forget you, but his dreams will not cooperate. The unconscious remembers what the ego denies. And in that remembering, something ancient begins to stir, his hunger to feel whole. This is where the feminine must walk with discernment. Because when you awaken a man's forbidden desire, you are not just playing with emotion. You are invoking transformation. You are calling forth his buried anima, the bridge between his mortal self and his divine potential. He will either rise into it or run from it. But your task is not to follow his choice. It is to remain rooted in your own. Do not mistake his distance for disinterest. Sometimes, when a man steps back, it is not because he wants less, but because he feels too much. He fears that if he gets too close, he will lose the false self he has spent his whole life protecting. And in truth, he will. Because the love he feels for a woman who mirrors his soul cannot coexist with the illusions he once lived by. And so, you wait, not in passivity, but in power. You do not chase, you attract. You do not plead, you allow. Because the woman who understands the psychology of desire knows this. The more she holds her mystery, the more his soul is drawn to it. There comes a silence after the storm, a space between his withdrawal and your understanding. It is in this quiet that the true feminine power is tested. Most women mistake this pause for rejection, but in truth, it is gestation. The masculine psyche, when confronted with its own shadow, cannot immediately embrace what it sees. It recoils, not from you, but from the reflection of its own depth. Jung called this the enantiodromia, the inevitable reversal, where that which is repressed eventually swings to the surface, demanding to be seen. You are that swing. You are the threshold he stands before, uncertain whether to step into the unknown or return to the familiar safety of control. He feels your energy even when you are not near. It lingers like a haunting, not because of need, but because your presence reached something beyond time. The forbidden desire you awakened is not about seduction, it's initiation. He feels as though he met not a woman, but an oracle. And yet, you do not wait. You continue your becoming. This is where your true magnetism multiplies. The feminine who embodies both vulnerability and detachment becomes irresistible, not because she withholds affection, but because she no longer seeks permission to exist. You are the calm in the chaos, the silence that unmasks his noise. Every time he thinks of you, he confronts the stillness that terrifies him most, your unshakable self-worth. The woman who awakens forbidden desire without being consumed by it understands her role in the sacred dance. She does not rescue him from his confusion. She invites him to meet her in consciousness. She does not interpret his retreat as a wound to her value. She knows that desire rooted in the shadow must first be purified by distance. She is not afraid to lose him, because she cannot lose what is not aligned with her frequency. That is the paradox of the awakened feminine. She ignites transformation in others without needing to hold them through it. She is the spark, not the keeper of the flame. Her energy moves like water. She nourishes, reflects, and reveals, but she never clings. And it is this fluid detachment that drives men mad with longing. Because the ego wants to possess what the soul can only experience. When he meets you again, whether in this life or the next, he will not see you as the woman he desired, but as the energy that undid him. He may not understand it intellectually, but something in him knows that after you, he could never go back to who he was. The forbidden desire you stirred became his teacher. The hunger, the ache, the confusion, it was not punishment. It was initiation into depth. For you, too, the transformation is profound. You learn that being desired is not the same as being valued. You begin to recognize the subtle difference between being admired for your mystery and being respected for your presence. You stop trying to soften your edges to make others comfortable. You stop using empathy as a disguise for self-abandonment. You start to walk as one who no longer seeks to be understood, because she is star. And in this state, you become magnetic beyond comprehension. You no longer radiate the need to be chosen. Instead, your energy says, I am already complete. The world begins to respond differently to such women. Men feel both awe and unease in your presence, sensing that their usual tactics, charm, intellect, validation, no longer apply. You have stepped beyond the realm of performance into authenticity. And authenticity is the rarest seduction of all. When Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole, he described it as a reconciliation of opposites. Light with shadow, conscious with unconscious, masculine with feminine. When you awaken a man's forbidden desire, you invite him toward that reconciliation. But the true mastery lies in not losing yourself in the process. You are not the fire meant to consume him. You are the flame that guides him toward his own light. There will be moments when you feel the ache of what might have been, the tenderness of connection without resolution. But in truth, every encounter of such magnitude has a purpose beyond romance. Some souls are meant to awaken each other, not to remain together. You will come to see that his desire was never meant to be possessed. It was meant to awaken your own. His longing became the mirror for your self-discovery. And one day, you will realize the profound beauty in that exchange. That even if he never returns, he has already fulfilled his role in your evolution, and you in his. The forbidden desire was the bridge, not the destination. You were not meant to end in possession, but in transcendence. Because when the feminine understands her effect on the masculine, she no longer confuses chaos with connection. She no longer tries to soothe what was meant to be disrupted. She lets the energy move through her, transform her, and then release her. You will look back one day, not with bitterness, but with reverence, for the man who cracked open your depth, for the mirror that showed you your own reflection. You will see that what once felt like loss was actually liberation. And when he thinks of you, he will not remember what you said or did. He will remember how your energy made him feel alive. Because that is the mark of the awakened feminine, not the woman who is remembered for her beauty, but the one who is never forgotten for her depth. There is a rare kind of silence that follows awakening, the kind that hums beneath the skin, neither empty nor full, but alive with realization. It's the moment when you no longer seek closure from him, because the lesson was never about what he felt for you. It was about what his desire revealed with an asterisk. The forbidden energy that once felt like fire has cooled into light. You begin to understand what Jung meant when he said that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives and we will call it fate. The man who once seemed to hold the power no longer does. You see now that it was never his gaze that made you magnetic. It was your own depth reflecting through him. The forbidden desire you awakened was never truly his asterisk. It was a mutual encounter with shadow, a meeting between two mirrors. You carried his anima, he carried your animus. You both were instruments of the same unseen transformation, colliding so each could remember what wholeness feels like. He may still linger in your thoughts at times, a phantom of intensity that once threatened to undo you. But now, you hold his memory with tenderness, not attachment. You can finally see the beauty in what was once chaos, the poetry in what you both provoked. You no longer crave his recognition, because you have recognized yourself. The ache that once pulled at your chest has become an inner calm, an embodied sovereignty. That is the secret of true feminine power. It is not in control, but in presence. You no longer need to perform softness to be loved, nor strength to be respected. You are both. The duality that once felt like conflict has become coherence. You no longer fragment yourself into roles, lover, nurturer, seductress, muse, because the awakened woman knows she can be all of them, and none. She does not need to choose a mask when she has learned to live unmasked. This is what terrifies and mesmerizes men in equal measure. The woman who is *free from the compulsion to be understood, from the hunger to prove her worth. The woman who no longer seeks safety in being desired, because her safety is within her own being. Her love no longer carries the vibration of need. It carries the weight of truth. When she loves, she does so consciously, without the desire to possess or be possessed. And that, to the unintegrated masculine, feels like standing before the divine. He may try to return, drawn by the memory of that energy. He will sense that your silence has become your language. But you no longer wait for his awakening. You honor your own. If he has grown, he will meet you in that stillness, not as the man who once desired you, but as the man who now respects your essence. If he has not, you will see it in his eyes, the same confusion, the same pull, and you will know. You will not need to explain. The lesson has already been learned. Because the truth is this: awakening forbidden desire in a man is not about seduction, it's about evolution. You became the archetype through which his soul demanded growth. You mirrored his emotional hunger so he could no longer ignore it. And in doing so, you mirrored your own. The dynamic was never about winning or losing. It was about remembering. The shadow you illuminated in him became the same one you healed within yourself. Now, you move differently through the world. There is a softness in your step, but a fire in your eyes. People feel it before you speak, an unnameable magnetism that comes not from trying, but from being. You are no longer swayed by attention, nor shaken by indifference. Your energy no longer reaches outward seeking reflection. It radiates inward, self-sustained. You've become the source of your own validation. This is the final stage of feminine individuation, the return to inner union. You no longer define yourself by who desires you, rejects you, praises you, or misunderstands you. You see all connection as temporary mirrors reflecting your own evolution. And so you love deeply, but without attachment. You give freely, but without depletion. You exist in the paradox of open-hearted detachment, a woman who feels everything yet remains unmoved by external approval. And that is where the story truly ends, not in reunion, not in heartbreak, but in transcendence. You no longer fear the forbidden, because you've integrated it. You have learned to dance with your shadow rather than suppress it, to channel your passion rather than be consumed by it. You have become what Jung called individuated *, the union of opposites within one whole, the light that understands darkness, the woman who can love without losing herself. So when you see him again, whether in this life or another, you will not tremble. You will smile. You will see him not as the man who desired you, but as the soul who helped awaken your own power. The dynamic that once burned with intensity will now feel peaceful, almost sacred. Because the woman you have become no longer needs to ignite chaos to feel alive. She carries the fire quietly now, within her chest, unshakable and eternal. You will walk away, not with sorrow, but with serenity. You will understand that what was once forbidden was simply unfamiliar, the depths of your own worth, the sacredness of your own energy. You will finally know what it means to be the muse and the mirror, the lesson and the liberation. And when the world looks at you, it will sense it too, the quiet authority of a woman who has seen her own shadow and made it her ally. A woman who no longer dances for validation, but moves for truth. A woman who no longer chases, because she is the destination. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.